Hi everyone, this is Annindita Palaus, and today's video is actually about one of the hot topics these days that everybody is talking about, that is racial discrimination and social injustice. I usually don't talk about political issues, and if you have been following me for some time, then you probably already know that this video is not going to be political in nature. It is not going to be about pointing fingers at anybody, at the government, at police, at any officials, at anybody else but other than your own self. Because I came across this quote some time ago that when you point a finger at somebody else, there are three fingers pointing back at you. And that quote really stuck to me because it really rang true to me. That every time we are pointing out at somebody else, there are actually so many things we can do internally to help that situation that we choose to ignore because we choose to blame somebody else for our problems. So lately I've been getting messages on my Instagram as well as an email as to what I feel is the spiritual solution for the racial indiscrimination and the social injustice that a lot of people in the world are facing these days, and how do we solve the existential crisis that the world is in these days. There are several aspects to this issue, but before we dive deeper into that, I definitely want to give a fair warning that this is really just my own personal opinion based on my personal experiences. Of course, you can have your own personal experiences and your own personal opinions, and this is not something that you need to change, and I'm not trying to force my personal opinions on anybody, but this is really just my personal, not just beliefs, but what I have learned in my life from other teachers and all the spiritual teachers that have guided me in my life and my journey. This has been the essence of their teachings as well. And I have to be honest that initially some of the topics that I'll be talking about today, 10 years ago, even though I read about these same things in different books and heard from different teachers, it didn't really make much sense to me 10 years ago. Even I would say 8-7 years ago, it didn't make as much sense to me back then as it is making to me today. So maybe depending on where you are in your journey, what I say, maybe it will make some sense to you, maybe it might not. If it does make sense to you, great. If it doesn't, that's all right too. Also, you might feel initially that I'm going way off topic here, but if you have the patience to stick till the very end, then you'll see that I'll circle back and it will all make sense. And before we get started, if you like watching these videos, then please like, share and subscribe, because your love is what keeps me going and I love to hear your comments. So let's take a moment to understand the concept of equality and justice. Since we are talking about social discrimination, inequality, injustice, so let's understand what really equality or justice is. What I have seen as equality or justice is really a very subjective term, because, for instance, let's say in a classroom, there are 10-20 students. Out of those 10-20 students, maybe 2 or 3 are really excelling because they are seriously interested in what the teacher is teaching. They are taking they are actively participating, they are doing their assignments, doing their homework, and they are really getting good grades. And then there are certain students who are not that interested at all in what is going on in the class. It is not anything that they are interested in. Maybe they are not doing their homework, not doing their assignments. And at the end of the year, when they take their examinations, of course, the ones who had been working, they get the good grades, and the others who were not working, they don't get the grades. Now, will it be a good idea for the teachers to pass all the students to the next class, even though not everybody has learned the lessons of the previous class? In the long run, is this kind of equality going to help? Is it going to help that you give everybody the same grades and pass everybody and make everybody feel like they are the winners, even though not everybody put in equal amount of effort? In the short run, there is a possibility that if it is done, some of the students who were not as interested previously in the studies, maybe now they feel motivated that, okay, I got passed and everybody's treating me equally, so maybe, I will put on some effort. On the other hand, you don't really know, it is a 50-50 thing. Maybe they will become even more casual and they'll think that no matter what, I'm going to pass anyways, so who cares about studying? Now, of course, you might be thinking, but this is not the same thing as social injustice or, the discrimination that women face at workplace or the discrimination that sometimes a lot of binary people or transgender or some other people who have some other sexual preferences they face on a daily life, or even the discrimination that people face based on their skin color or based on their race is not the same thing. And maybe from the surface it might not look like the same thing. Similarly, at a workplace, maybe somebody who is getting favored by the boss, by the employer, that person would feel like they are deserving the promotion, they are deserving everything that they are receiving. That person is going to feel very happy. On the other hand, the ones who feel that they are not being favored by their employer are being somehow discriminated against. So they will be complaining about the indiscrimination. Again, the same situation could even happen at your own home, that if you have ever had any siblings, then for sure 90% of people who have had siblings will have at some point in their life might have felt that their parents are being biased, that parents love my sister more because she's prettier or she's smarter, she's more talented, and they love me less, or my parents love my brother more and they love me less. At some point or the other, even people who have had siblings, they might have felt this from their own family, from their own parents, that parents are being biased, they are discriminating against. And that is their own parents. And I'm not saying that the parents are actually discriminating. I'm quite sure that in their minds, they are being fair. I'm quite sure that in their minds, they are not discriminating against any of their children. Or maybe some parents are discriminating pretty consciously too. I don't know. But in the most of the cases, the people who are actually doing it, they don't feel that they are discriminating. They feel they are doing the right thing. And the people who are getting favored, they also feel that it is the right thing. It is only the people who are feeling left out somehow are feeling that there is discrimination. In fact, there are certain nations that have been formed by looting and plundering the wealth of other nations. And the men who went out to loot and plunder the wealth of other nations, those men are the founding fathers or the founders of that nation, and they are worshipped and praised by the countrymen because, of course, they are looting and plundering other nations but bringing the wealth to their own nation. So in their own nation, they are national heroes. But outside of their own nation, they are not heroes. So again, equality and social justice, that is really a matter of which side of the equation you are on. If you are on the receiving end, then everything is well and good. If you are not on the receiving end, then you start blaming, then the question of social injustice or discrimination starts. So really my point is just that the whole idea of justice and equality is really a made-up psychological concept. And it is not an objective concept. It is not something that you can objectively measure and say for sure that yes, this is equality and this is inequality, or this is discrimination, this is non-discrimination. So what I'm trying to point out here is this, that justice and equality is such a subjective concept. It is not a concept that everyone can agree upon. It is not a concept that everyone can objectively say that yes, this is right, this is perfect social justice and this is perfect equality. We cannot, because it is such a subjective experience. Even when your own parents could have sometimes behaved in a way that might have made you feel some kind of indiscrimination, some kind of injustice done towards you, when they might not even have had that intention in their mind to begin with. How could you expect a complete stranger to behave with you in a way that would be absolutely fair and just and absolutely equal? I'm not saying it's not possible, but just the very fact that when discrimination exists at the family level, how can you expect that? And I'm not saying that discrimination is existing for everybody. It doesn't exist for everybody, but I'm just saying that your experience of injustice, your experience of inequality, your experience of discrimination, if that experience is existing at a family level from your own parents, how can you expect somebody, a total stranger, a total outsider, to behave in a manner that is monk-like, almost monk-like? Because the reason there is discrimination, and again, this is what I believe, that the reason there is discrimination is because as human beings, we live in a dualistic environment. We live in an environment where there is black and white. And of course, there is gray and red and orange and pink. But what my main point is, we live in an environment which is constantly making us choose, which constantly expects us to take a side. And in fact, our survival to a huge extent is based on our ability to make the right decision, to make the right choices in life so that we are able to survive. So the ability to choose, the ability to discriminate, the ability to have a choice, the ability to have priorities, these are actually good things. We discriminate because we have priorities. For instance, when I go to the store to get ice cream, every single time I get chocolate ice cream. I hardly ever buy vanilla. I always get chocolate. You might say that I'm biased. You might say I'm discriminating towards other flavors. But of course, when it comes to chocolates and ice creams and petty things like that, nobody really cares if I'm discriminating or if I'm being biased. But when it comes to more important things like getting a job or something even more serious like getting killed, of course, then it is a much more serious matter. But what I'm trying to point out here, even though you might be feeling that I'm getting way off topic, what I'm trying to point out is that preference is something that we are all born with. And even though some of our preferences are programmed into us by a society, by our environment, for instance, our food choices again, the food habits that I have is conditioned because I was born into a certain kind of family, so I got conditioned. I eat certain kind of food and I don't eat certain kinds of food. I find certain kinds of food disgusting, to be honest, and I would never put that in my mouth. It's just because I had a certain kind of upbringing. If I would be brought up in a completely different family, then that same food that I today find disgusting, I would probably be eating and it would be my favorite, who knows. But the main thing is that our priorities and our preferences are shaped by a number of different factors. They are governed by a number of different factors. And having a preference and having a priority is not really a bad thing. And expecting people to not have preferences could be actually counterproductive or counterintuitive, because it is an expectation that is going to set you up for disappointments in life. The reason being that people are going to have preferences. So far, the only kind of people I've seen who don't have any preferences are the people who don't have any attachments and any aversions. And they are the monks. They are really monks and sages and mystics who don't have any attachments, who don't have any aversions, who see you for who you truly are, who don't put any labels on you, who don't see you for being a man or a woman, being black, white, yellow, orange, no matter what all social labels that we have put on ourselves, that we not only put on ourselves, but we also put on others. There are very few people who are evolved to that level of consciousness, that they are able to see you beyond all those labels that you have put on yourself and also on others. The label of being a man or the label of being a woman, the label of being binary, the label of being bisexual, homosexual, heterosexual, the label of being black, white, whatever it is, label that you have applied on yourself. Does that mean that the labels are not true? They are at a certain level of consciousness, sure, they are true, they are correct. But beyond that level of consciousness, of course, those labels are meaningless. But there are very few people in today's world who have evolved to that level of consciousness, who will see you beyond those labels. So expecting others to behave in a monk-like way, expecting regular people to all of a sudden evolve to such a level where they will behave in a monk-like way, might be setting you up for disappointments in life, honestly. So you might be wondering, then what is it that I suggest? Just sit there and do nothing? Well, that is not what I'm suggesting here. Again, if you have been watching my videos or following me for some time, you probably already know that I'm all about taking personal responsibility. And taking personal responsibility does not mean blaming yourself. It does not mean criticizing or condemning yourself. It means taking your personal power back when you are no longer waiting for somebody else to change so you can be happy. You're no longer waiting for rules and regulations to change so you can live your life the way you want to. And of course, it involves you going beyond a certain level of consciousness. It involves you taking the steps to raise your level of vibration. And that is what I believe is the long-term solution for most of these problems, the present day world problems that we are facing today, I really believe that the long-term solutions are really twofold. First of all, raising your own level of consciousness. When you raise your level of consciousness, it is now a well-known fact, and I have already spoken about this in many videos, as well as in my Reiki programs, my meditation programs, my Abundance Revolution programs. I have repeated this over and over again, that how raising your vibration makes you resonate with higher vibratory people, higher vibratory circumstances in life, higher vibratory opportunities. Everything is resonating or vibrating at a certain frequency. When you work on yourself to raise your own frequency, then you're automatically resonating at that level of consciousness. When you're resonating at that level of consciousness, you attract things which are similar to that level of consciousness. So certain experiences in your life cease to exist when you raise your level of consciousness. So that, I believe, has to be the first and foremost step in your life, no matter what the problem is. The first step has to be raising your level of consciousness, working on yourself, instead of pointing a finger at others, that the government should do this, the police should do this, the society should do this, people should do this, my neighbor should do that, my husband should do that, my parents should do that. Before you point a finger at anybody else, the finger has to be pointed towards your own self. And the question to ask is that at what level am I vibrating at? What consciousness level am I vibrating at? And you can figure that out very easily. Just look at your life. And again, I'm not saying any of this from the place of self-blame or self-criticism or condemning yourself. It's just for an honest evaluation, just to take stock of your life. Where are you currently? Because if you don't evaluate, then you would not really know where you are and where you want to go. So just look around in your life, see what kind of interactions you are having with the people in your life. What kind of relationships do you have? Are they empowering? Are they disempowering? What kind of television programs are you watching? What kind of books do you have in your bookshelf? And how much time are you investing on yourself, on improving yourself, on raising your own vibration? And that would be a very good indicator of where you are currently in your life. And wherever you are is wherever you are. It's not for self-criticism or condemnation. It is just for stock taking. That just make an inventory of where you are and decide where you want to be. If you're constantly seeing yourself in situations where you feel like you are being discriminated against, where you feel there's a lot of injustice towards you, then definitely you are not vibrating at the level that you want to be vibrating at, because then you would not be having these experiences in your personal experience. So raise your own level of vibration. Raise your personal consciousness. And secondly, I would say that let go of your need to identify with outside labels. The labels that we put on ourselves. I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm transgender, I'm bisexual, I'm binary. People should call me he, or people should call me she, or people should call me this, people should treat me this way. So do away with all the labels that you have put on yourself. All the labels that you have come to identify yourself with. And people put all sorts of labels on themselves. Labels like I'm a drug addict, I'm an alcoholic, I'm a this, I'm a that. Whatever, it's not just the labels of the skin colors or the labels of genders or sexual preferences. People put all sorts of labels on themselves. So the more conscious you become of these labels that you are putting on yourself, the more free you will become of these self-limiting identifications. And the more labels you put on yourself, the more you will feel labeled in the outside world too. Because what you experience externally is really a representation of your experience in the internal world. It is never the other way around. And the more labels you have come to identify with, the more labels you will see that others are also putting on you. The less labels you put on yourself, the less labels others will be putting on you as well. Plus, even if others are putting labels on you, when you raise your vibration to a certain level, when you raise your consciousness, and when you let go of your need, your attachment to certain labels, then what happens is, even when people are putting those labels on you, it doesn't bother you. It's like, let's say somebody comes to me and tells me that this red colored t-shirt looks horrible on you. You should never wear red. But it doesn't bother me because I know that this t-shirt is not red, first of all. So if somebody is seeing it as red, it is their problem. Secondly, whatever color it is, I really like this color. It doesn't matter that some people might be there who might think this is red and they might not like it on me. it doesn't bother me because I like this color and I like myself in this color. So it doesn't bother me as much if people don't like me in that particular color, wearing that particular t-shirt. That was again just a random example, but you get the point. That when you have effectively changed or shifted your perception or your energy or your consciousness, then it doesn't matter what people are doing. It doesn't bother you or it doesn't affect you as much. Instead of pointing fingers at others, I really believe in taking personal responsibility. And again, if you're watching this video right now, you know that I am not a white supremacist. I cannot be, because I'm not white myself. I am from India, I'm Asian. So of course, there are a lot of Indians around here who talk about discrimination against Asians, against Indians, and things like that. Me personally, I've never felt that. Because again, that is not what I have identified with. That is not something that I choose to ever identify with. And those are not the labels that I'm putting on myself or on anybody else. So personally, me, I have not felt that, but I know so many of my friends have felt discriminated against. Again, it is possible, it is very much possible for you to be living in the same world and sharing the same people and not having certain experiences while others go around having the same experiences. Because we all create our own personal realities. The less you focus on these outside labels, outside identities, which these identities are fake identities that we have associated with. We have put these labels on ourselves and we put these labels on others too. And the more we associate with these labels, the more self-reinforcing it becomes. And the more you reinforce these labels in your mind, the more you will experience these labels in your daily life. So if you are asking about a spiritual solution to these problems, I would really say that instead of expecting others to raise their level of vibration so they are at a level where they have no attachments, no aversions, they see you for who you truly are, and they are able to move beyond the boundaries of regular human consciousness and treat everybody with perfect justice and equality. Even though perfect justice and equality is really just a concept. It is really a very subjective concept. And honestly, I really believe that it cannot even exist, because people pray to God and they love God and say all these things. But imagine, just look at what happened to Jesus when he was there in person. He was crucified. So even we have made evil out of God as well. So if we can have problems with God, we can have problems with every single thing. We can have problems with everybody. So perfect equality and perfect justice, I'm just saying that it is possible only with a person who is monk-like. But there are chances that some people will also blame a monk or will also blame somebody who is highly evolved for being unjust and unfair. So the blame game always continues. There's a certain level of consciousness that is based on blaming. And as long as you keep yourself stuck at that level, you will keep on feeling like a victim, and all you can do is blame. And that's why the most important thing for you to do is get yourself out of that victim consciousness. Work on yourself. That would turn out to be working on yourself, investing on yourself will turn out to be your single most profitable investment of all time. Guaranteed. So work on yourself to raise your own level of consciousness, and you will see that victim mentality where you felt like you were the victim and you felt the need to blame others, that will not exist in your reality anymore. So I hope that made sense, and I know some of the things I said might make me very unpopular. A lot of people might not like it, but that's all right. I really felt like the question was being asked several times, and I felt like maybe I should just share my opinion. So let me know what your thoughts are, and if you like it, then share it and subscribe to my channel. Talk to you later. Bye.